Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital, and welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is the weekly video games podcast where we give our impressions of the video games that you can play today and react to the latest news from the wonderful world of video games. We're here every Monday on your favourite podcast app and YouTube, absolutely free. This time I'm joined by the former Dimp Digital Gaming Quiz Champion. He's also in the running for the Grand Prix Championship. It's Pac-Man himself, Tom Adcock. How's it going?
Mate, it's going all right, but don't say it. I heard you slagging me off the other day, mate. Written off. Poor choices. Might as well have left it, he said. No, we said he's given up. I ain't given up, man. I'm just biding my time. A couple more windows. It's
one window left.
It's fine. That's exactly what I knew. So,
to be fair, I still think it's really open, and people are getting written off, and people are already being sworn in as the winner, which I think is a ridiculous thing to do. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't look good though. If you were to look at it on paper and someone didn't quite understand that there was time to rectify it, if they looked at the scores and the doors for the Grand Prix, they'd be looking at relegating you, I think.
I mean, I'll be honest, I'm fucked, and I sort of gambled is really not paid off. Haven't managed it, so got a lot of blank spaces now. Unless Nintendo come out and go, oh, Bayonetta 3 and Breath of the Wild, and it's all coming out tomorrow, then got a chance. Otherwise, not so much.
Well, I always say that you can. I think Biff made the most transfers last year and still won. And historically, the people who are making the transfers get the goods. So I think there's always a chance. You never know what's going to be lurking in the ether to come out. We're not going to do another Fantasy Gaming League episode, thank Christ. People are saying they're not too happy with those, but that's what it is. Half-Life Alyx and the Oculus Rift S headset. I'm going to give my impressions of both of those. I know you're all sitting there going, "Oi, what Apps? Why have you got that little Pac-Man fella on?" I'll go, first of all, don't slag him off. He might look like a little Pac-Man fella, but he is a valued member of the Dimp Digital team, and to be honest, brings the most experience to Idle Game Chat just on age alone. But the most important thing for this episode is he is and long-time fans will know this, historically you've been the VR man. Now, Biff originally had it and then, as usual, packed it in after about a year, but you've had the VR, you've been playing the VR, so it kind of makes sense to have someone with some VR knowledge who can probe me on that. And
fits on my little Pac-Man head better as well, doesn't it? It's clean, sort of less COVID, so it just slots right on, no problems.
Yeah, one thing that's the sort of spoiler for a head, that the annoying thing was how hot it gets in those things, and having like a bowl cut hair like I've got at the moment, it was just like my fringe was stuck over my eyes constantly, and then steaming up, and I was like, oh.
Steaming up's the worst. Yeah, it really annoys you.
We're fortunate the pair of us don't wear glasses, because I think that's another added hassle that we don't.
Yeah, I feel like glasses, and if you get really motion sick, both of those could be absolute.
Which I've been known to get a bit motion sick now and again, so that does happen sometimes. But before we kick off formally, I'm just going to plug the Patreon. Oh, there's a beer going. What we got?
So it was actually slim pickings. San Miguel from a leftover barbecue can, so $3.30. Not bad.
Out of a can.
Yeah, I know. Who brings cans? Well,
cans are fine, but I didn't think San Miguel was a canned drink. Well, obviously they all are, but normally I'd expect to see that in a bottle.
It's the premium special, apparently, so...
Well, a bit more guts about it, but I'm going to plug the Patreon. It's patreon.com/Idle Game Chat. And if you enjoy the show, you can head over there and support us financially. And if you don't want to do that, at least tell someone else about the podcast and say, best podcast in the world, Idle Game Chat on all your feeds and YouTube. So one of those two, please. Otherwise, we'll start getting the ump. I'm not really sure where to start here. I feel like actually you should take the lead on this. And you can sort of ask the relevant questions. There's a lot of pressure on your shoulders now to make sure you get the most out of this VR chat. But I was thinking, just as a pointer, it might be worth covering off the Oculus Rift S, like the hardware, so we know what I was dealing with, we know what setup I had before moving on to the game. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, okay, let's do this then. I mean, I know very little about Half-Life in general, so I'm actually quite interested in this one anyway. But yeah, so actually, have you still got the headset?
No, I've sent it back. So that's the first thing to say. I had it for about 3 weeks. And yeah, it went back for various issues, which we'll get into. It was £400 UK, so not a cheap purchase. And I've reinvested that money into a 1440p monitor, which was a far better long-term investment than something I should have done about 18 months ago. But yeah, it went back because I had some. It weren't stable enough for me. It didn't work consistently enough. And when you're paying £400 for something, I expect it to work pretty much all the time. And,
yeah, that's really interesting because I think, well, we did have a conversation a while ago and you asked me a couple of questions about the PSVR, and it massively has its limitations. It can be a bit of a fuzzball most of the time, like low res.
Yeah.
But in general, performance-wise, I've had nothing. I would have nothing but good things to say about it. Yeah, it's a bit of a novelty still, and even I have waned on it in the last sort of 6 months. But I can't fault it, like performance-wise. It works. It works really well, and if you can get over, especially the more like cartoony games tend to look pretty good. It's when they go for the real life they kind of struggle a bit.
The Resi 7s of the world.
Yeah, I mean that's actually grainy. Probably the one that actually kind of bucks that trend. But generally speaking, like the Blood and Diamonds, or whatever it was called.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
I forget. Yeah, the one that was obviously like London
Snatch.
Heist. Yeah, exactly, like that. Some of that was really sort of fuzzy thinking, David. So yeah, I'm surprised you're saying that because obviously this headset is a lot more high end, I would say, or a level up at least.
Yeah, I'd say like out of the levels, you've got PSVR. Actually, I'm completely going to blow this, but PSVR is like sort of an entry level type VR jobby.
Of like the sort of consoles. Obviously, there's the phone ones you get.
Yeah, you've got the phone ones, but you've also got the Oculus Rift Quest, which is like its own self-contained thing. Doesn't need a phone, doesn't need a PC, and that's a bit sort of middle end alongside the same sort of price as this Rift S. So then I would say the middle end is the Rift S stroke Quest, and then top end's the Vive stuff, the Steam and Valve created stuff, and you're looking for a full kit of that, $1,000. So you can understand why when I was looking at VR, I was like, right, I ain't paying that, and I've got fucking erect cameras in the room. I was like, no chance.
That's mental money, isn't it? And yeah, it's a big setup.
So money was definitely a factor in that, and I wanted to harness sort of the power of the PC as well. So that's why the Quest was quite easily written off, because it's a self-contained thing. You can now link it up into the PC, but it hasn't got the guts aren't as good. So I thought, I've got a PC sitting here. I don't do too much gaming on it, and it'd be nice just to maybe that can be the VR machine. So I thought Oculus Rift is the way to go. And then the S. The thing they boast about is that you can do room scaling, i.e. you can sort of wander around in the room and it'll track you quite well without setting up any cameras or any additional sensors, because what I didn't want is an extra layer of hassle when it came to starting up VR. Or even just the initial setup, like I said, with the Valve stuff. Do I really want to be putting up cameras and screwing things into the wall and into the ceiling? Not really. I know you can get little tripods for them, but again, I don't really want to clutter the room. So the fact that this was even technology-wise existed, I was quite impressed. I was like, oh, hang on. You don't need any additional sensors. That sounds too good to be true, and in some ways it was. But that's the reason why I kind of went down that at the right mix of price, and also removed any extra clutter I'd need, because the PS4 or the PlayStation VR, you've got to have that little camera set up, haven't you?
It's a pain, mate, especially now I've got all my wires like into the wall.
Yes.
And I haven't got it set up, so I don't know when or if that's ever coming back out, if I'm honest.
Yeah, because it's designed to sit on top of the telly, isn't it, the camera? Like you can sort of pin it.
Well, I've got like the TV on the wall and then like a unit under the TV, right, and it worked fine there. Yeah, like because it basically then the first thing you do is like calibrate yourself with the camera, so you might have to kind of step forward, step back to be in the correct sort of range, but once you're there you should be pretty good basically.
Nice. Yeah, well this one it's the Oculus Rift S, quite straightforward. You just plug it into your display port in the back of your PC, I think there's a power socket. I'm pretty sure there's a power one as well, but obviously there's one big, huge wire coming out, and you're away. It really is. It is pretty plug and play, like just to get the thing booted up. Once you've got in there, you've then got to calibrate the controllers and the headset to the environment, and that's pretty straightforward. Like the controllers, you just hold some buttons and it detects.
So when you say controllers, you got like your own like Move controllers, or just
yeah,
like
sorry, yeah. So that £400 included like 2 Oculus Rift, I think they're called Touch controllers.
Okay.
And they're quite cool. They're sort of like little sticks with little round sensors that can kind of almost track where your fingers are, not quite.
Interesting.
If you lift it off the trigger, you'll notice your little finger in the game will come off slightly. It's not exact, but it at least registers that you've sort of lessened the grip. So you calibrate those, and then for the room scaling, it's got some outward-facing cameras, which is again quite clever. I think most of the high-end VR sets have that, so you can see outside and see your room, so you don't trip over anything. And all you do is draw like a square basically around the floor of your area where you want it to be, like a guardian it's called, and it sets up like a little perimeter. You go near the perimeter and a little red mark will come over the game and say, oh, that's the wall there. And you're off. So it's actually a pretty, relatively stress-free setup. And then when the tech itself works, like the actual scaling, the actual tracking, without any sensors, I'll be honest, is pretty incredible. Like for it to be that accurate with nothing but 6 outward-facing cameras, like just looking at the room, is amazing. I've just got this headset on, and it's still able to detect all my movements. The controls are picking up my hand gestures, all this good stuff. And when I first got it running, I was like, this is excellent, in all honesty.
Well, yeah, because they've just simplified quite a complicated thing there, haven't they? By like, guessing the ones where you like screwing cameras to the wall and stuff,
yeah,
they're like reading each other, whereas this just drawing that like line in the VR world. So you just, as long as it knows where you are in relation to that, determined line, then it makes it really easy. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. So when it worked, it was superb. The trouble, the really ugly head, was when I'd turn it off for a session. I'd be like, yeah, that was a good session in VR. I'm hot, but might have overstayed my welcome. Come back the next day, and it would never. I think 30% of the time it would boot up okay. The 70% I'd have to redo the calibration, redo the Guardian, redo the controls. And then even sometimes, because I was playing Half-Life Alyx, which is on Steam, there's like a Steam VR app, and that sometimes it wouldn't connect and talk to that. And then at that stage I was like, right, so although hardware-wise there's less faffing around, when you've got to get into the software, there was a lot more kind of hoops to jump through and a lot more areas where it could go wrong. And so if something's not working, it's hard to actually figure out what's going wrong here. Is it the sensor in my headset? Is it the software between Oculus and Steam? Is it Steam and the game? And I thought, you know what, I don't even like PC gaming as it is at the best of times because of all this bollocks. Now I've got this fucking headset here, which is like an extra layer of what the fuck's gone wrong and what's not working. And for it not to work most of the time, when I booted it up and not remember my Guardian setup, at that point I was like, this is unacceptable. And I thought, when I finish this game, it's going to go back. And that was probably about halfway through the game I decided that. I was like, I'm going to finish this, get through Half-Life Alyx because I'm enjoying it, but it was not smooth sailing, and I was kind of expecting a little bit more for that sort of money.
It's like an orange, sort of not worth the hassle, not quite, can't. Yeah,
I don't like oranges anyway.
I've got
so
a
that's
question.
Probably why.
2 questions.
Go on. Shoot.
One is a practical one. So with this, like, your wall's like 3 feet from you, and you're walking towards your wall. If you're walking left and you're going, it warns you that you're going to hit your wall. If in the game world you still need to go left 4 more steps, like how does that work practically speaking?
So it depends on it. To be honest, it depends how you have the game set up and how your control scheme is set up. So with Half-Life Alyx, you've got a few options. You can choose to teleport to move around, which kind of not eliminates but reduces the amount of times you need to be walking around in an area. I think you can freely walk around as well. Or you can have the old school where you use the touch controls to move forward, and I was thinking that's going to give me motion sickness if I do that. So I just stuck it on teleport, and what the game allows you to do is like just flick back on the right analog stick, and it will move you back in the game.
Got you.
So you could step back a few steps in the real world. I'll then be further away from my target. If I flick forward, I can then teleport to the closer bit and inspect whatever I was doing on the floor without bumping my head.
Yeah.
I still hit my head on a few things, and because the game because Half-Life Alyx actually has quite a lot of action in it, like shooting and ducking and covering, which I wasn't really prepared for in VR. I did a few times scrape my knuckles on the wall because you just panic. It's like fucking hell, you don't realise where you are. And once that happened just once or twice, it kind of, whenever something kicks off, I'm always a bit slow to react. I was like, I need to be a bit more methodical here, but then the game didn't always allow for that. So it doesn't take a lot, really, to knock your confidence in you not hitting something. And then once you're aware that there's walls again, it kind of sours the experience a little bit, I think.
Agreed. And then my other question is, like, the problems you had, I'm assuming you've done apps research.
Yeah.
Like, is that a common problem then, all these, like, startup problems?
It seemed to be. A lot of people were saying that it was the Oculus Rift itself, as in the one I'd got. Like, there's people that don't have any of those issues where it just switches off and says the sensor's not working, and they reckon it could have been a defective headset potentially,
right?
Which is quite common in monitors, funny enough, which is what I've traded it in for. Like, there's actually quite a lot of people that will get a monitor and it will have like a dead pixel on it, and then they'll have to send it, or you either accept it or they send it back and get replacement, because there's like a tolerance in like the QA world that allows for certain things to maybe slip through the net, and that may have been the case here. To be honest, there was so many different things that actually went wrong. The game crashed a couple of times, the Steam VR crashed a couple of times, the sensors switched off once or twice, that at one point I was like, this could be just the whole ecosystem on this that's just not, and I've just got really unlucky in it. They're just not talking effectively to one another. You probably would have a smoother experience if you got a Vive, because you've then got this, it's a Steam based headset, whereas because I was an Oculus based, I've still got to jump through the hoop of going through.
It was
Steam.
adding an extra layer.
And it's just like that was that part of it. Again, don't know. After it happened enough, I was like, this is too much.
It's poor. It's the Bethesda of VR headsets, mate. Letting standards slip. Yeah, send it out. It's fine. Dead pixel.
It's madness, really. But it does happen. And but at that point, I was a bit like, I'm not really. I enjoyed the VR experience, and I hadn't had it in a long time. But I kind of looked at the horizon, and was like, right, what else could I play on this? Astrobot, no.
Well, that was my next question. Was there anything else sort of lined up? I know, like Half-Life, I'd love to play this.
Yeah,
I've heard really good things, but I can't. And then, so yeah, did you have anything else? Like,
the only thing,
the horizon,
it was only The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, which usually I wouldn't have given the time of day of a new Walking Dead game, because they've been quite poor since the Telltale games. But this one in particular actually was getting decent reviews in the VR world, so it sounds like they've done a good job of it. But you know, basically, I've ordered it. One thing I will say is Amazon were excellent. I think I ordered it in just the end of May, like 20th of May or something like that, and I had like 6 weeks to return it. So I've got more than what you'd normally get, because I think the pandemic, they'd extended people's sort of return warranties and stuff like that. But I got to the sort of middle of June, and I thought I could start this game again, but I'm a bit frustrated with the tech. You know what? I'm not even going to put myself in that situation where I'm halfway through something, I've got to send it back. So I'll just as soon as I finished Half-Life Alyx, I packed it all up, sent it off, and it wasn't even in the post to Amazon. They'd already refunded me, and I was like, Christ.
So because of Bezos's generosity, little Jimmy in Southampton is going to open his little VR headset this Christmas.
Yep.
He's like, Mummy, why is there a long apps hair in my VR? I've seen your hair, mate. You haven't had a haircut in 6 months. Ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
Sweaty apps juice all over his headset. It's disgusting.
I did try and clean it, but to be honest, I don't know if they'll just go back into like a defect line. I don't know how they'll do that, but it ain't my problem now.
Like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, just put it in a big box in a big storage warehouse somewhere and just lock it up.
Be done with it. But
that's it.
Yeah, it's a shame, really.
That's a real shame. Yeah,
because like I had just about, like, it recommends, I think the minimum's one squared meter, like, to have like the room scaling, and I just about had 2 if I got my lines dead on, like, because when you're doing it by hand, there's always a wobbly bit. So
where were you, in your little office thing?
Yeah.
That's a pretty big space, to be fair.
Yeah, so it was a shame, because I had like the right setup for it, but yeah, it's just too much. I thought, you know what, 400 quid actually is a lot of money for something that's not working well, and game wise, am I going to really like now? Well, I mean, we're recording this in August, so pulling back the curtain in case it's been delayed and airing months afterwards. But I couldn't imagine playing VR in this heat.
No, no one's doing that.
No, it would kill me off. So I think the Oculus Rift S, for people, if you can get a decent headset that's working and don't have the problems I had, it's actually a really good bit of kit. And considering the high end is £1,000, like 600 quid in your back pocket back is decent in my view.
Problem is though, it's still not. It's as much as a console, isn't it? Like that's the thing. It's still not cheap.
No, it's not cheap at all, and
so it needs to be working for 400 quid. Like
yeah.
as you say, if you can get one that does work, but then it's still a gamble, isn't it? I guess if you can get this kind of Bezos 6-week vibe, then Christ, do what you did: line up a few games, test it out. If you ain't liking it, drop it.
I mean, it's tough, isn't it, as well? Because it had this been 2 years ago, maybe even 3. I don't know when the VR. Like, if had it been like a first generation headset, I feel like I would have been a bit more accepting of like problems.
Of course, yeah.
Whereas now, I feel like especially the feedback you've given on PSVR, like it's pretty much. I mean, it's technically not as strong as this, but it works 99% of the time. Like there's no faffing around. Dave Salmon Hogsworth, he's had a Vive and he's had all sorts. I think he's got an Index now. He's had no issues with that, like the top end. So it kind of like at this stage of the game in the VR race, you want it to be working flawlessly. Obviously, respecting that the tech might crap out now and again on the rare occasions, but when it's more often than not, that to me, like this far into VR, feels a bit weak sauce for me. That should have all been ironed out in Gen 1, and then when this one comes about, they're like, right, we've hit this, we've nailed it. But that's Crufts, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, the only tech problem I can think of with the PSVR was that sometimes the tracking would go off. So if you kind of moved either in your seat a little bit if you're sitting down or kept looking to the right, like, I don't know, something was over there, it might not then track back to the middle. So you were always kind of slightly then off center.
Yeah.
And if it got worse and worse, it would really, that would give you serious motion sickness because, like, you knew you weren't like facing straight, but your straight was now like at 75 degrees to your left, and it was like really sort of messed with you after a while.
Yeah.
But that happened just a couple of times to me. It was never a big issue. It just, you really noticeable when it did happen because you felt fucking terrible.
I remember one evening I had with Half-Life Alyx, and I think I had a little dog, obviously, so I could have got like a couple of hours to play, maybe an evening tops, and then it's time to look after him. It's my turn. And I spent 90 minutes of those 2 hours trying to get the thing to work. The language coming out of this office, I hope no one was walking by. I was getting hot, I was swearing, I was ranting, I was raving. It just would not work. And then, for whatever reason, and I'd said this multiple times, it's the last time I'm going to do this and I'm going to walk away from it. I said it about 6 times. For whatever happened, on the 7th time, it worked, and I'd done nothing differently. And I thought, I can't tolerate. I don't even know what I've done to fix it. It's just started working. And the worst, the biggest sort of crime it used to commit is that I'd get in sometimes, I'd like no Guardian set up. I'd be like, oh, it's remembered where I was. Oh, this is all great. I would go into my little virtual desktop because you could like see your desktop in VR, which is quite cool. You can like watch YouTube and that, which is good to play around in. Start up Half-Life Alyx, and then the game wouldn't it would not track my head movement. It would like be in like pictures almost. I turned my head, and that would really make me feel sick. I was like, oh god, that's really messing with me, like you said, because your brain's half tricked at that point. And it just say the sensors aren't working. Please try again. And I was like, well, this is what do you mean? What's that? And that was the last straw when it happened for that. Because usually I'll just restart it once and it would work. And I was like, I can almost work with that. Like if I know I've just got to do this every time, I can almost logically say, yep, okay, that's just going to have to be a concession I've made. But when it went on for 90 minutes and I was just trying all these different things, I was like, that's the end of it. You've broke me trust now. I'm not having it.
Oh dear. All right, well, that's a no-go. But how about the game then? Should we get into that?
Yeah, so Half-Life, I love Half-Life. I remember...
So how have you, again, you're too young, so how have you played these games?
I don't know. I think the reason I got into Half-Life was because of Counter-Strike.
Okay.
So if you go back to when there was internet cafes, there's one down
Yeah.
South End next to the Sutton Arms, I think it was.
I know exactly the one you mean. Yeah.
Rose Asylum. I think there's another one called Cyber Club or something in Victoria Plaza or whatever it is. Anyway, and we, at that time, Wakering internet was 56k dial-up pretty much, so you could not play an online game. I remember I played for months Counter-Strike, and it was the laggiest, shittiest connection ever. I think I got one kill against like another human, and it was pure luck. So in the end, we discovered as mates, like as a group of us used to play, that there's actually, we can go down these internet cafes and play Counter-Strike. And Counter-Strike was actually a mod of Half-Life, so you needed to have Half-Life installed at home.
Didn't even know that.
Yeah, so that's how it kind of started out. And that's really how I got it. I was like, I've got this game installed called Half-Life. I'll just jump in and play it. And back then, this was like 98, I guess, 99, probably into the 2000s, we're still playing Counter-Strike at the internet cafe. I used to play Half-Life at home because I didn't need the internet connection. It was a single-player game. And as I said, it's back in those days where I didn't care much, so I used to put God mode on and raw through the game, and I loved it. So once Half-Life sort of got his hooks in there, when I saw there's a Half-Life 2 coming out, I thought, well, that looks great, I'll play that. Did not have a PC capable of running it at the time, so I had to wait years. I didn't play Half-Life 2 until about 5 years ago, and it had been out plenty of time before that, and I was pleased to play through that. So really, it was just luck. It was just Counter-Strike was there, and I had to have Half-Life installed. And I gave it a go, and I thought, well, this is a great game. Sort of didn't know back then how good it really was. I really liked it, but when you're sort of 12, you're not really going, oh, this is one of the best games ever made. Like, you're just sitting there and playing it. And it's only when really you look back at it, I think, actually, for its time, the reason why it stood out, and I played a lot of games between then, from like Unreal to Unreal Tournament, all on PC, like Half-Life definitely stood out. And then Half-Life 2, even playing it all those years later, like almost 10 years later it would have been by the time I got to it, it was still really good. So I was one of those fans that was waiting with bated breath for Half-Life 3. And as you probably know, just from following the industry a bit, like that's just like the ongoing joke, isn't it? That
it's here now, mate. Half-Life Alyx. It's a VR game.
Yes.
Do you reckon they're going to work on it now? And that this has been really, I mean, obviously Half-Life 3 is always going to be successful. Well, not necessarily, I guess, if they fucking blow it. But I
think after this, it definitely will be successful. Like, this is now, because I think the question coming to this was, it's been so long, 16 years since the last sort of mainline entry to Half-Life, and it's in VR. Have Valve have still got the bollocks to deliver something here? Yeah. And the short answer is they have. They've done a really good job of this, and I think it can only build hype for a potential third. One thing I would say is I hope they don't make it VR only, in all honesty, because the biggest problem I have with the game, this is going to sound stupid, is that it's in VR. It's the VR parts of the game that I enjoyed the least. And
oh wow, okay.
That was I don't think that's necessarily because that it's implemented badly. I actually think it's one of the best implementations of VR. But what this whole experience has taught me is that I don't like VR that much. Like I just don't.
I mean, mate,
can't relax.
Completely, yeah, that's very true.
It's a great experience. Like, it's one of those, you do have those moments. Like when I first booted it up and I was looking around the city, like you're on this little balcony. I was looking, I was like, fuck me, this is incredible. Seeing like these big fucking machines walking by. I picked up a bottle and threw it at a bird and it reacted and flew off. And I was like, yeah, that's good. I enjoyed that.
I think the key word here is what you just said, is experience. Like VR as an experience is unparalleled. It's fucking amazing. Like you put anyone, even if they don't care about video games, it blows people's minds. But then you ask someone to sit down and play a 5, a 10, a 15-hour video game.
Yes.
And yeah, I agree with you. Like, I mean, probably the best game I played in VR was Astrobot.
Yeah.
And I mean, that did make really good use of like VR, you know, the perspective, you know, of, you know, being actually in the world. But I mean, it's, you know, it was kind of like playing Super Mario World or Super Mario 64. Do you know, like it was very simplistic in that, you know, it was just like jumping puzzles and using that perspective and kind of being blown away. Like anything more than that is, I kind of agree with you. Like a lot of the other games, I was always kind of like, this is cool, but I'd rather be playing a traditional game, like 100. Like there's no question. In fact,
it's really taxing, like just on your body, even like just having to stand up and like, the maximum I could play the game. I've basically worked out as about 60 minutes. I quickly realised that if I spent more than 60 minutes playing Half-Life Alyx, I would start flagging. I'd get hot, I'd get sweaty, I'd get irritable, but I could feel like sweat dripping in my eye. That would start stinging. I'd be like, right, I'm kind of like done with this now. And I don't mind playing games like that, but ideally, if I'm enjoying something, it'd be good to have it in a vessel that I can play for 2 hours without feeling uncomfortable. And
actually, look, let's take a step back a second, okay? Because I know there's like the Rumbles of the world, the Marcuses, they're sitting there now going, oh, I know you two are sort of two of the leading industry experts on video games, but oi, apps, Adcock, I don't even know what Half-Life is. I'm a youngster. I didn't play them. So, and to be honest, I'm not going to lie, I know very little of this world. I've played Portal and Portal 2, which I believe are sort of in the same universe, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know, actually. I've never gone down that rabbit hole, but they're Valve games and they are excellent as well. Like anything Valve makes, typically, has been really good, but their output's just it's worse than Rockstar's.
Yeah, Portal 2 is fucking fantastic. One of the funniest games as well.
Oh, yeah.
But, but for what I know, first-person shooter with a really sort of like sci-fi, big on story...
Correct.
And left on a cliffhanger in Half-Life 2.
Half-Life 2 Episode 2. So they've done some DLC after. So just to really, turn the knife, that's what they did. And that was 2007, Episode 2. So it's been 13 years sitting there.
That is a long time.
And this is a prequel, Half-Life Alyx, to Half-Life 2. So with that in mind, Half-Life itself was like a first-person shooter series and sort of a mixture of combat and puzzle solving. Okay. And I guess unlike a lot of the games at the time and something that's come into games more, I think going back to 98 when the first one came out, like it used a lot of scripted sequences and things like that, and everything was advanced through the first person perspective, and you played Gordon Freeman. He never spoke, but the whole story is told by other characters around you, and you never break that first person viewpoint. Got you. And it's a sci-fi game. Essentially, he's working at a black mesa. The great thing about that game I used to love doing is it starts off and you just go into work as Gordon Freeman. So for the first half hour, you just have to sort of get to work on the tram, check in, go and put your suit on, talk to people, and then it all kicks off and there's like a...
Got ya, love it.
It's great. And I used to replay that bit over and over because I love that sort of calm. But essentially there's a big sort of combining of dimensions called another one called Zen, and it drops a load of aliens off and that fucks the world basically from there on out, and you're just trying to get out. And Half-Life 2 carries on that story outside of the the Black Mesa research facility.
Got ya.
Half-Life Alyx is set just before Half-Life 2, and actually for those that like the lore of Half-Life, I think Half-Life Alyx is a really smart entry because it plays on things that you already know and also fills in gaps of things you don't know, whilst making it relevant, it being released at this time sort of after episode 2. So there are links to the whole Half-Life universe that I think fans that have been waiting for that next step, you're not going to get the next step because it's a prequel, sorry, but it will still reference enough of the latest episode 2 that you're going to be like, oh, okay, now let's see where this perhaps goes in a future game.
Got ya. Nice.
But if you've not played them, they will feel old. Yeah. It's as simple as that. But they're great games.
And then I'm guessing there's some of the same enemies and things in Alyx as in the original. I'm guessing they look significantly different in VR. That's one of the advantages when you get the scale of these things. And
so you get one of the iconic enemies are the head crabs, which basically jump at you. They try and jump at your face, and the idea is they get on your face. They you become the host then of them, and you're a zombie. That's basically
cool. Aliens vibes.
Yeah, it is very Aliens vibes. But that's now in VR, so now they're jumping at you as you walk around the corner.
Yeah.
So if you don't like things like spiders and things like that, it's really offsetting. But it's nice to see them in VR and like swat them away with your gun and shoot them and have to like line it up and aim. That's all good stuff. But a lot of the enemies are, well, they're not. They're called the Combine. So I don't think they're human. They're like another alien race that's kind of running the Earth at that point, but they're like humanoid enemies basically. They have guns and weapons and things like that, so they're quite standard. So a lot of the enemy in combat encounters are with those guys, and that sort of combat is really difficult, I found, in the VR, because you can't take a lot of damage. You have to I was sitting there like kneeling down on the floor to get behind this box, because it's like room scale. Like I can't just sort of stick to the cover. I was like on the floor, like Jesus Christ. In that sense, it was quite cool. But then after a while, I was like, I can't be bothered to keep doing that. I'm going to hurt my back. So I don't need to be doing this. And yeah, so it's nice. It was really good seeing this world realised in VR and getting up close and personal with a lot of the bits and pieces that we'd seen in previous games. And there was definitely some good points to it. I think the overall narrative is really good. Like I said, I just think the VR vessel, the big thing they talk about, and the kind of like the USP of this game is that you've got an item called the gravity glove. And the way that works is that you point at an object in the game, and then you hold one of the triggers, you flick your hand back, and the gravity glove like pulls the item towards you. Then you grab it in midair and then can use it. So that's the main VR gimmick. Like it's like you can use that to like unlock things. You can use it to like pull little upgrades that you can get for your guns or for your health or whatever like that. Ice Cream Man, you'll probably get that in a minute.
I can hear him, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the main thing, is that they're saying that it's in VR because that gravity glove isn't possible to do in a traditional game, and I kind of think you could do it a bit more clumsy.
I was going to say, so this couldn't port over then, you don't think?
No, well, they said they can't. It's good. It's like really cool. Just like flick your wrist and pull like a gun over to you and like grab it in midair and then shoot someone. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I feel like you could do that with an analog stick if you adjusted it to sort of fixate on the items and you use the analog stick to like flick it back. I don't know. It feels like it's doable. But I guess you lose that clumsiness when you miss it and then drop it on the floor, and there's all that sort of stuff you've got to think about as well. But
it is a bit of a shame that one of probably the most anticipated games of the year is going to be missed by so many of its core fans.
Yeah, it's a bit of a stinker move really to do that, because the VR population is going to be on the lower end of people that are playing games. And those that are Half-Life fans, there's going to be loads that don't have access to it, and that's a shame, considering it's been 13 years since Episode 2. You'd think that they would want to have everyone to come along and join the party and say, look, this is the big comeback of Half-Life with Half-Life Alyx, but no, you've got to have £400 headset and an £800 PC there to run it. And the other thing is, and I don't know whether it will be ported over, but like this could run on PSVR, I'm pretty sure. Like they could just downscale. Well, yeah. You got Resi 7 on there. Like,
that's very true, yeah.
Like this is a long game, I'll be honest, but I think they could do it. Like the technology is not going to be much different from, you just have to adjust the Move controller, I guess. But they don't want people on the PlayStation to have it at the moment. They want it to be exclusive to PC, so you buy it through the Steam store. So I don't know, maybe one of those ones that sort of arrives in a few years' time, and the more people can play it.
Is it like broken up into? I've got no idea of the formula. Is it like broken up into chapters? Like how many chapters have we got? How long is this game?
Yeah, so it's about 12 hours.
I like that. That's sort of my sweet spot, I'd say.
Not for VR, mate. It's way too long.
Yeah. Do you not 12 think? Sessions, mate. It is, but break that down. I would do that an hour, like over 2 weeks, just kill that off. That's fine for me.
Wow, it felt too long for me.
Okay.
It was. I was thinking, Christ, because it runs out of steam. Is the problem? There's only so much. Like when you lose that amazement of, I'm in VR, this looks really cool, and it becomes a game, it actually becomes clumsy to move around and do everything you need to do.
Yeah.
And 12 hours of it was very taxing. And yeah, there are chapters. I think there's maybe 14, maybe slightly less. And my God, the pacing of the chapters are all over the place. Like you go through one chapter, it's an hour. That's about right. That's what I expected. Over another chapter, it's an hour. Another chapter, it's 30 minutes. She's like, okay, that's a little transition, that's fine. I was on one for about 2.5 hours, nearly 3 hours. I was like, right, what are you doing? There's like 2 of them that are like really long like that, and I was like, why have you done that? It's really frustrating.
It's really interesting because as you kind of like get into a routine like that, it is annoying because you might think, oh, I've got like an hour and a half.
I want to get to the end of it.
Yeah, I'll smash out a chapter, and then you're like, well, I'm not even halfway through this. And
yeah,
that's a good point.
It was so that was irritating, if I'm honest. It just felt a bit too long, and like long before the end of the game, I found the combat like fun anymore. So much so that I switched it down a level, went like full old school sort of baby apps, couldn't put God mode on, but I found the next best thing, like, and I was fucking ripping them up. I was like, take that, you bastards. And it was, by that point it became a bit more. It's like a routine just to get through it. The shine had come off it by the back end of the game. I'd probably say the last half even that I felt a bit like that because I knew that the game was. I was only halfway through and I thought, bloody hell, another 6 hours of this. And long before the end, the shine of the VR experience and what some of the great things that Half-Life Alyx does with the gravity glove and the puzzles, I guess, are okay. They're not like groundbreaking, like simple, like. So you've got to get a charged wire from A to B, and you've got to move the panels. There's a lot of that going on, which is quite standard stuff. So
simplified from the other games, are you saying? Or were they? What were they? Can you remember what they were like previously?
Yeah, so it's I don't know if they're simplified. It felt like there's a lot more environmental puzzles on the old ones because you were jumping, like platforming. Like obviously this doesn't have that because you can't run and jump, so you lose all that environmental stuff that was interesting to play with in favour of, okay, I've got something in my hand and I've now got to manipulate it so that I can unlock the special item or whatever it is, or open the door using the power panel and following the wires up and then changing the panels. So yeah, I mean, I think they do definitely lose a bit of variety when you go into VR because you can't do the platforming stuff really because I was teleporting around all over the place.
It's true, yeah. I don't know how I feel about that teleporting thing. It serves a purpose, but obviously, like, have you ever had a go of like full fat VR then, like at a games expo or anything?
Yeah, like, what do you mean? Is in like you
know, like you see these bloke, with the cameras and like people drawing bow arrows and like shooting people. Like you've seen these things on Twitter and stuff, and it's.
I think I have, but all the games that have all been set up, and it's kind of, because I remember when they first started, they were you just move normally with the analog stick, and that used to make people feel rough.
Yeah,
they were standing still and the character was moving. I think over time they've adjusted it to be, a bit more of a VR friendly one. But yeah, I mean, I've played lots of PlayStation VR games that have plenty of move controller bits and pieces that feel like sort of.
Sorry,
VR.
I mean like as in like when you actually move around. You know what you're saying with the
room
move around
scaling.
your room. Yeah, have you ever played like the full,
No, it was the first time, to be honest.
Top tier version of that.
No,
I just wonder like how much that adds on. Like, is that?
Well, I think
if money was no option, you had a room dedicated to VR in your house, and I
think it would add a bit, but not enough to warrant the outlay of setting up a new house for it. Because the thing is, it only takes one, like, for you to get close to the wall once.
Yeah.
For it to then that'll be it. You kind of are wary of it. It only takes one of those, and that will happen even in the biggest of rooms, unless you have like a fucking warehouse where you can't do it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was good enough what it was. Like, it was impressive just walking around this little space here, just sort of crouching down and moving a bit, scurrying forward to get something underneath a shelf or something. That was interesting. But
I can't believe it makes you. Like, if you're 70 years old, you ain't playing this. Like, if you were a 7-year-old with a VR, you've got to be this. Because I played that Blood and Truth, I think that's what it's called, on PSVR, and you obviously had to duck behind things there. But it was pretty chill, if you know what I mean. You could, you could sit on the couch and a little bop up and your little man would pop up. You weren't doing like 500 squats in a session. Well, this sounds mental. Well, you're crawling around like.
You haven't got to. I mean, it's only because I wanted to get the little upgrade thing that I noticed as the corner of my eye. Like, you can you can play it sitting down, I'm pretty sure. Just that you've got to be then quite strategic on where you put you sort of teleport yourself, because you want to have some cover that you can, be behind if you need to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a bit more taxing than I thought, and I think the room scaling adds to that, because I was sort of getting on my tiptoes, my hand up, trying to grab things, and yeah, I don't know. I just think that a franchise that's been just ignored for so long to then come out with this in what is really a good VR game, probably one of the best out there. And if you would look at the scores, even that would be an okay opinion to express. So, but I just still think the whole vessel of VR holds it back a little bit from being like a top tier game. I think it's a good and competent VR experience, but if you're comparing it to, like, even if I've played Ghost of Tsushima, I just think I'd rather sit down and play that, if I'm honest. And that's a good game in itself, but it's not going to win Game of the Decade when it comes out to 2030, when we get round to that. Jesus, imagine that. 2030.
Cool. It's coming, mate. All right. Is there anything else you would like to say before we go into reviews?
No. Actually, I guess again the VR part of this game is the puzzle solving and a bit of the combat and the gravity gloves where you can like flick stuff towards you. But there's also other bits like reloading your gun is very manual in the game, so each of the guns have different like little levers you'll need to pull to uncock the latest magazine. You slot it in, so that was all quite fun to do throughout. That was quite an interesting take on it, but again, I don't think you're going to be missing much if you ported that to a console and just press square to reload it. Like, reloading shouldn't be the highlight of a game in my opinion, but again, because it's VR, everything, even the small bits, feel like they're a big deal. But generally, I think that it's a shame really where we are, that there's going to be a lot of Half-Life fans that can't experience this because it's not going to be, as far as I know, ported to any non-VR components, and at the moment it's PC only VR, so those with a PSVR are sort of sitting there thumb up arse saying, do I just go back to Astrobot? And people are nodding going, yeah, that's all you've got, mate.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're quite like, I mean, as you were talking then, I was just like, right, let's see what the world's saying about it. And
they love it.
I mean, well, exactly.
It's been made out to be the second coming, and
let me get Sergius Mackenzie's. After completing the game today, I can only say wow on how great it is.
I don't get it.
I'm going to list all my pros and cons. Pros, the graphics, the best I've seen in VR. Gameplay, very similar to Boneworks, and even better with props. Don't know what that means. World immersion. It's got very like unique sort of like parameters here. Yeah. It feels as you are part of the world throughout. AI, amazing, well balanced and crafted. Gets stuck, but overall okay.
Right.
I'm not going to go on. This is models, very good and highly detailed. Right.
I mean,
cons, need an expensive gaming PC to run, but smooth without blur. So sticking it to the PSVR.
Yeah. Nasty that is. Yeah, I mean the Metacritic, the Open Critic score that we use for the game release, a 92, which is very good, and loads of 10 out of 10s. I don't know. As someone who, and I felt like this, as someone who's not had that much experience of VR, like I've played my fair share, I was expected to be bowled over by this, because I was like, not only is it in a medium or it's been implemented on VR, which I'm not overly fatigued on. Like I've still got that amazement when I put a headset on now and again, and also it's Half-Life, but I just didn't get that. Like, it all just wore off pretty quickly. It's just I think it just struggled with the balance maybe slightly, and the combat side of things, whilst fun, became the most frustrating thing in the game. And I was like, this is now annoying me that I keep dying here because my fucking fat head's poking out of this box that I can't get behind. But then again, there's cool bits like when they throw a grenade at you and you use the gravity gun to flick it towards you and ping it back at them and you nail them. That feels good. But to be honest, like this time next year, will I still be thinking about Half-Life Alyx? I might be thinking about the story and when the next game's coming, whether that's going to be VR or how that's going to work. But I'm not going to be thinking, that time I reloaded that rifle, fuck me. That's really stuck with me, that has. Christ. I don't. Yeah. It's just, I'm not saying it's not bad. It's good, but it's not. Maybe it is a breakthrough game for VR. I don't know. I've not played enough of it, but I'm comparing it to other video games. It didn't feel as strong in that sense. That,
to be honest, I mean I know what you're saying. In a game series that you have like a history with and love, in a game format that you enjoy, and you haven't really got that much experience in VR. If this isn't going to be the one, then realistically what it is.
Yeah. I don't think
at the moment
it's not worth. And I guess the kicker is a lot of people have gone out and bought a VR headset, which is the reason I kind of got it. I was like, I want to play Half-Life Alyx because it sounds like it's going to be groundbreaking. And I didn't get that from it. I didn't get groundbreaking. I got very good VR game, like very, very good virtual reality game, but not bowled over, if I'm honest.
Well, look, do me a favour. So give me your thumbs up.
Well,
obviously, just
down.
as you are, with everything considered. Then if in a world where Boris has gone, right, it's lockdown, you're all bored, going to throw you all a free VR headset and a high-rig gaming PC to play this. So everyone's got one, and all you're doing is paying the $25.99 or whatever they charge for this on Steam.
Well,
if that gives a different review, then maybe give me that thumbs up as well.
So I'll still give it one thumbs up, Half-Life Alyx. So it wouldn't.
That's good. It's better than I was thinking.
It ain't going to get groundbreaking too. I mean, really, it could have potentially, like, I don't know. I just feel like,
from what you're saying, I would have thought you was going to have like thumbs in the middle. No,
because it was still decent for what it was, and there are great moments in it. And the narrative, it's really the fact, I'm getting caught up in the fact that there's been another Half-Life game. That's really the main takeaway here, that Half-Life as a video game series still exists. Okay, it exists at present on a platform that most people won't want to play, won't be able to play, and perhaps won't want to invest. So I kind of feel like a bit of a fuck you to Valve for doing that. But perhaps maybe this was just a proof of concept. Apparently it started out as a little sort of proof of concept by a team, and they showed it and they went, yeah, do it. So it wasn't like it was planned to fuck people over and stop people from playing it, but people talk about, that Spider-Man's going to be exclusive on the Marvel's Avengers on PlayStation 4. Oh, this is exclusive to a fucking PC and a fucking VR headset, and they're getting away with it. So don't be saying that. If this is going on unchallenged, it's a bit of a kick in the teeth. But I still think objectively it's a good game, albeit a bit long. And the vessel of VR certainly pulled it back from ever getting 2 thumbs. It started off really strong. Just, once you lose the wow factor of VR, I was like, this is just another sort of video game, really.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, and I'm guessing then the fact that if everyone had a free VR, you're not giving it more than a 1 thumb up, are you? So that's redundant.
No, because for me it comes down to time invested as well. Like, you can give me all the games you want, but if I've got to sit there and play it and not get that time back, that's what's going to be the judgment of it, not how much it costed. I mean, if it costs, $6,000, then absolutely pull it up and say that's way too expensive. But I always try and look at it, where possible, as a time invested project rather than money invested. So, philosophy.
Fair enough.
It's the only currency you can't get back time. So there's a little food for thought.
So that's Walt Disney, mate, who's currently frozen, ready to come back. Probably livid for what he's done. Oh, Marvel, no. Get back to those slave films of the 1940s, the real racist ones.
They were, weren't they?
They were terrible.
So they've been taken down, or have they?
Yeah, I listened to a random podcast that was talking about it. They've it's not on like Disney Plus or anything. The real bad ones aren't there, and I think some of them have little warnings now to say, this was made in a time when it was all right to be racist.
Yeah, this is in the 50s or whatever it was, so it was okay back then.
It's America. It's 2001 onward, really. Satire, so that's what you get.
They'll be taken as legit, and will be hate bombed or whatever they do nowadays. Cancelled.
Right, what's next, mate?
That's it for that. So we'll call this episode off, and we'll
not the ideal segue, but it's fine.
No, I mean, I should have taken over the reins and done that, but as it gets hotter and hotter in this office, the concentration levels lapse. But that's a little chat on the VR side of things. Oculus Rift S, not overly great. Half-Life Alyx, decent, but not the second coming. It feels, one last fault on it. Maybe 2 last faults. It feels a little bit like Breath of the Wild to me, in that people are going, best game ever made. Like, wow, look what you've done here. Like, nothing's close to you can climb up walls. It's like, well, how long does your sword last, mate? Or 3 hits? Well, and then it breaks, does it? Yeah. Just got to get another one. Fuck you. That's not the best game ever made, is it? It feels like that sort of conversation that's going through my mind where it's like...
I agree with you with that on the Breath of the Wild. What annoys me is that no one seems to have changed. Anyone who was like day one, best game ever, 4 years on, they're still like, best game ever, physics engine, look what I'm doing, flying across the map. It's like, very good. Yeah, well done. I'll never, ever have the patience to learn how to do that in the game. So...
No.
Pointless.
This feels a bit like that this is getting huge accolades and it's, you know, groundbreaking, all this stuff, and I just haven't felt that. I felt it's good. It's very good in some aspects. Some aspects it's not very good, but not got this feeling of like, wow, I've just come out of something really, really special.
Yeah, I guess in hindsight, it's a really good like move for them, because if it had been a blower, people would be like, well, it's not main entry, it's just a little VR side project. Yeah, but it's paid dividends because everyone's like, well, it's back, it's filling in the gaps, it's in VR, it's a new sort of concept, and it's great. So
I will say that it doesn't feel like a side project. It feels like a proper, like this. It feels like there's a lot of love and care put into this. It doesn't feel like a spin-off. Like, to give them credit, like, this feels like a proper Half-Life game. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways, is that, yeah, this feels like the next entry of a game from Half-Life. And who knows, maybe if I hadn't had the issues with the Oculus Rift S, like, I would have had a bit more of a positive outlook on it, and maybe it would have felt groundbreaking. Maybe that's what soured it. But then that's the risk you take, Valve, when you put things on VR headsets that don't always work. Like, I can only play the game I've been given in front of me on the kit that you've mandated I need. And he's like, well, I'll get an index. I'm not spending $1,000, Gabe. Come on.
So basically, if you've already got a headset, I mean, I'm guessing if you've already got a headset, you've already got the game realistically. What are you waiting for if this isn't already on your purchase list? Yep. But if you haven't, what would you say? If you're a hardcore, I mean, again, if you're probably a hardcore Half-Life fan, you've probably bitten the bullet and gone out and got one, because again, what else are you doing? But if you're sitting on the fence and you can't get a 6-week sort of trial period, you're probably saying not quite worth it.
Not worth all the kit and all that stuff, no. I mean, if you can somehow manipulate a retailer into giving you one for 4 weeks, and then I think the game's worth buying at the whatever price point it is, not just having that, even if it's a one-off, but to then keep the kit as well, you've really got to have more games that you're willing or wanting to play. And maybe The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners is that. I don't know. It could be other games that you've been waiting for, and you're like, oh, now I've got about 6 I want to play. Whereas I had other games I wanted to play, like I said, like one of them was super hot. I thought I'd jump through that in VR, but because of the technical issues of the Rift S, I was like, fuck that. That ain't happening.
Yeah, it's not that good, mate. Don't worry about it.
No, so that's that. But yeah, that's Half-Life Alyx and the Oculus Rift S done. We'll be back next Monday with some more idle game chat. So we'll bid you all adieu. Thank you very much for your time, and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.